PM Express is brought to you by
Guarantee Trust Bank. Wouldn't you rather bank with us?
Hello and welcome. Well, gone are the days when you look into your friend's desk and in there will be a little envelope and you open it and it might be a little love note from a girlfriend from another school, and then a few of her friends will gather around and read a few lines and giggle, and that was as far as data leakage was concerned. But these days, with the pace with which information is moving and technology moving, and being Ghanaians as we are, when we adopt technology, we seem to focus too much on the negative side rather than the positives. So what do we see? Leakages here and leakages there, particularly those in the tertiary institutions. And the trauma which these people may go through, I can only wonder, particularly the girls. And you tend to realize that in most cases, in most of these leakages, you tend to see the girl, but never the boy. How they manage to finish school, how their parents go through, I don't know. So there's the legal implication, there's the psychological implication, and we're going to look at everything today to find out indeed who's breaking the law. If I have my sex video and I want to share it, after all, it's mine too, isn't it? Can I share it? Where does my law end and where does yours begin? In terms of data protection, we're looking at sex tape leakages and all the fallout that comes with it. My name is Nana Sakwao. This is PM Express, and get your words around the TV because they have to learn and they would have to take an advice or two from the show. Coming straight back. Much for staying. Well, so it so happens that allegedly a tape leaked of a sexual content, and it was suspected that the actors in this tape were students of Tech, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Even though this evening they've come out to say, listen, they've done their investigations and they don't have any students like that in that school. So they are still investigating to find out who are in this video. However, this is not the first one to come out. Legon has had their fair share, Koforidia, Techimine, indeed Kukwentumi. Everyone seems to have their fair share. Tamale had their fair share of all these tapes that are leaking. What are the legal implications? If I've had my tape, who can I show it to, and when can I show it to? Can I keep it? What are this? And then the psychological aspect, those involved when it leaks, how do you continue your life afterwards? We're going to look at all that. So it's a very important conversation. It's a conversation that if you have children from SS and above who are smartphone savvy, get them round so they can get an advice or two. But before I introduce my guest, let me just ask you if you are indeed a customer of the Guaranteed Trust Bank, Ghana Limited. And do you know that you can buy airtime from the convenience of your own home or office using the GT top-up service by dialing the short code *737#, *737#. Guaranteed Trust Bank is rewarding customers who are yet to activate the GT top-up service from Monday 15th February to 14th May 2016. The first 20 customers who activate the service daily and buy a minimum of 20 Ghana cedis airtime on any network will be rewarded with 5 Ghana cedis worth of airtime. To activate the GT top-up service, dial *737# on your mobile phone and enter your GT bank account number. You are then required to key in a 4-digit secret PIN and confirm it to complete the activation process. GT Top Up is the most efficient and reliable means to buy airtime for yourself, family, and friends wherever and any time. The short code is *737#. Remember, the terms and conditions apply. Guarantee Trust Bank. Wouldn't you rather bank with us? Convenient way to send units to your wards if they are in school. But with me in studio is Mix Teki Akute, who is the Executive Director of Data Protection Commission.
Yes, thank you for
having me. Teki, you're welcome. And the tradition is that we find all our first-timers a bottle of Schnapp and Mante Munsa. Joining us on the phone will be Francis Xavier Sosu, who's a human rights lawyer, and then Kingsley Nyako, who's a psychologist. So they will all come in later as we are going. But since Teki is here and, data protection, Teki, if it's on my phone, it's my data too. I mean, can't I share my data with somebody? I mean, how does it work?
Well, you can share your data, and your data is presumed to mean any information about yourself or from another person where you have the consent of that person to share that information. So if it is another person's information on your phone, you will not necessarily have the full rights to just deal with it as you want to, unless you have the consent of that person to handle the information in a manner they deem fit.
I may not have the consent from the person to share, but maybe I have the consent to film, and I use my phone and I filmed it myself. So I had the consent to film it.
So when you say you have the consent to film, are you saying that the person agreed that Nana Ansakwa is going to take this image of me? And if he is, the law requires that you let that individual know the purpose for which you're actually taking that image. It is only under those circumstances, if they even know that you're filming them. However, you do not tell them that you're going to use the information for one purpose or the other. And subsequently, they find that your use of the information was offensive, they can actually take you on, and you will actually infringe on the data protection laws, because at that point, you have not given you didn't give the data subject or the individual that reason or purpose for which you're actually taking their information. I don't know if I'm making myself clear in that circumstance.
So I would have to have extra consent to say, look, I may share this.
Yeah, I mean, in data protection, let me just give a bit of genesis about data protection. Data protection has come about because as Ghanaians, we have a right to the protection of our privacy. It's an inherent human right, which means that the moment we were born, we were clothed with that right. And our Constitution recognizes that right, so we have it under law. Now, because of sometimes the challenges of proving privacy, okay, and because of the subjectivity of privacy, laws like data protection come about to set out parameters under which we can say that, yes, Teki has a right to privacy, and that privacy has been infringed upon because the parties involved did not follow these particular procedures. So data protection actually works within what we have some 8 major principles, which are very basic principles, which one says that collect the information lawfully, let the person know why you are collecting their information, let them know what you're using their information for, protect the information, don't use it any longer than necessary. Don't keep it any longer than necessary. Don't use it for any purpose than the reason why you took it in the first place. And make sure that as long as you're holding the information, you're keeping that integrity of the information. So don't, if it's, let's say, kept in a computer system or whichever mode, whether it's physical or electronic, make sure that the information cannot be corrupted. So if it has my name, you need to ensure that, the information cannot be corrupted in such a way that my name may change because of maybe a virus. Let's say my first name is kept and then your last name is added to my name, because it changes the integrity of that information. So those are the basic principles underpinning that. And what the law says is that everyone who processes personal information, and when we talk about processing personal information, it's anything from holding the information, looking at the information, to deleting the information. Anything at all that you can do with personal information is processing. And the law says that as long as you're processing, you must respect the data protection principles. Even if you're an individual and you're doing so in the personal, space, you must respect that right to privacy. The only exemption to data protection is where you are processing information about your household and people within your household for household purposes. There, the law will not strictly apply. So it means that even if you are my friend, and you have information of me and you're sharing and you're not sharing correctly, I can hold you responsible under the data protection laws.
Is it applied to just when nudity comes into, like you haven't signed anything, but you're on air. I'll put you on air.
Yes.
And you haven't signed anything. At the end of the show, can you sue me or?
There are certain reasons that can be attributed. For instance, I came in here to participate in this program, which I'm well aware is a public program, and so it can be assumed that I am giving my consent under those circumstances. However, there are different kinds of personal information. In the issue of sexual life, it is part of what we call personal data, special personal data, or in other jurisdictions, they call it sensitive data or sensitive information. So in the realm of sexual life, it's part of sensitive information. And for those areas, you need my express consent to actually process it. It includes areas like health records, information about somebody's political opinion, their financial status, and the like. So in those areas, you need my express consent, and the law is very clear on it. In fact, what the short title of the law says, that processing of special personal data is prohibited unless, you comply with the provisions that is stated in the law.
How practical is the law? Is it one of those laws that, you just put it on paper and then that's it? Because, people record phone messages and...
Yeah, it is practical. Data protection is common sense. Like I said, how practical is my right to privacy? In fact, my very being as a person, rests strongly on this right of mine to privacy. I don't believe that you would want anybody to come into your bedroom and then film activities in there. Recently, when we heard about the attempt to pass, a government interception bill, we were all worried. And everybody started waving that privacy card. Usually, it looks like it is a very difficult thing, until we find ourselves or we have the semblance of that right being infringed upon. Then we see the extent of it. But it's very practical. I live my life, and it's not every information about me as a person that I want out there. Take it, for example, I have had a history of, let's say, a mental ailment, which I've been cured from. I go into a hospital, I'm applying to teach in a particular school, okay? And they say, bring your health records. Now, by the laws, at the time I was diagnosed, and because I've been cured, that part of the record is not supposed to go to my employers. And unfortunately, the hospital doesn't take the necessary care. They just forward my entire folder to the employers, And guess what happens? I don't get the job. It is real. It's affecting my pocket. In the current issue, for instance, the lady may go through a lot of psychological issues. If indeed she's a student in the university or a student anywhere else at all, she may not even be able to interact properly in society for a very long time. You may have to, if she's in a school or a particular school and the people who saw her know her from the video, she would have to probably relocate out of the country to, you know, find a new life and all of that. So these issues are real. And it's important that as a people, we start thinking, you know, more responsibly about how we handle information about others. The fact that we have phones, the fact that the internet is there, the fact that we can take the videos does not mean that we behave anyhow with it. And that is why a law like this is important, to streamline our behavior.
I'm going to take a break because, funny enough, that's what I was going to find out, that, gone are the days when we used to write letters and, somebody would just read your letter and then you just, the best you could do is probably photocopy it and show it to someone. But today, when there's WhatsApp and within a split of a second, everything goes viral. Has the law taken this into account? No move, I'm coming. Well, thank you very much for staying, and we're looking at the leaked sex tape and fallouts of it. And even though the KNUST one is the one that has started the conversation, it's not the only one we're talking about. We're just looking at data protection and how practical it can be. I mean, we live in a country where, people's basic rights, even the right to go to school is denied. Can we really respect this? And I say that because even these, the lawmakers, every meeting they go to, they leak the voice, they leak the paper, somebody's resignation letter, people's contracts, everything is just all over the place. Are we going to respect this law and follow it?
For the law to work, there must be a number of approaches. The key institutions or stakeholders involved will be, one, the data controllers, those who actually have this information and have control over it and are collecting it. Now, the institution, which is our institution, for instance, must be strong and must stand steadfast and ensure that people actually know about this law and they're taking steps to protect, and enforce their rights under the laws. And the third person, who I say is the most important, is the individual whose rights are being infringed upon. Because like you rightly said, we have a lot of beautiful laws in this country. The only reason why they are not working is because we are not holding people accountable to the laws. So, for instance, where is this lady? Has she gotten the lawyer to actually start some process, to hold the culprits responsible? It might be interesting. Today I was having a conversation with someone who was asking me who are some of the people she can hold responsible. And I'm like, there are several. Because even if I find out that you have it on your phone, you've published the information. You've published it without my consent. You've infringed the laws. It is important to sometimes test the barriers of some of these things. It would interest you to know that just last March, this year, in the US, this wrestler, Hulk Hogan.
My favorite.
Yes, he was awarded some huge punitive damages to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars because some sex tape involving him and another individual had been published. So the media organization that actually did the publication, the person who was suspected to have leaked, the information, and all those who were involved were taken to court. And the jury gave him some huge, compensation. And we must, in fact, Ghanaians have the right to compensation when their data protection rights have been infringed upon under our laws. And so we must take steps to ensure that we're actually enabling the law. Because if we don't go to court and we sit back and we treat this as one of the issues as usual, like you mentioned, this is not the first time.
No.
A couple of years ago, and we've had several incidents.
There's been the Koforidua tapes, the Tamale tapes, the
exactly.
tapes.
I mean, there's been several, and it's probably because no one and the victims are not actually taking these things up through civil trials, to ensure that somebody is...
But is it worth it? I mean, are you going to go through all it and then they give you 500 CDs and you realize, look, what a waste of time? Or are you going to go through it and get something worth you resettling and starting your life?
If you go to court and you are able to establish the damages, I believe a court, will reasonably give you damages. Courts in this country have awarded damages and punitive damages for people's rights being infringed upon and the like. And so it wouldn't be new. But the point is we're not getting a lot of these issues going to court to even start the, argument about how much punitive damages. I hear it, like you are saying, from a lot of people, how much is the court going to? But of course, if you go to court and you ask for so much, you must prove why you're asking for this much. And
let me, sorry to jump in here,
yeah.
but I hear this, ladies, like old school platform.
Yes.
And one of the ladies, sending a nudie picture to the hubby and then accidentally posts it on the platform.
Yeah.
I mean, what does she has any protection for? What do you do? Quickly send a message to say, don't look?
In fact, I think the first thing you do is to send the message to let them know that this information had been wrongly sent to them and that they should delete it immediately. Now you know the source, the first source. So if the information moves around, then anybody in that group will be culprit. Because she's informed you that, look, I have shared this information wrongly. I believe you've seen emails with privacy notices that this email is meant for A, B, C, and D, and we're sure if it ends up with you wrongly, delete it. It's that kind of, a responsibility. So you would immediately inform them that this is, some wrong information that I sent to you. So take steps to delete it.
But deletion is illegal, isn't it? It's part of the infringement. Or not if
process,
I'm giving
in this case, I have given you my consent to actually delete it, you see, to delete the information, so you wouldn't be infringing.
Wow.
In fact, that is the purpose for which, I've sent the information. I'm telling you, this information does not belong to you, so take steps to destroy it.
Probably it's not a fair question for you, but let me ask you, like the lady in this tape, I'm sure by now she's in the darkest corner, in the darkest part of the world.
Yeah.
Wouldn't even want to see the sun, moon.
I know.
I'm like, how do you come out of there to even start saying, well, that's it, I'm going to now champion my rights?
It is worrying. It's very worrying, and I have been extremely worried about her and the entire situation. And I can tell it's psychologically it's going to be a big thing. But just as we say to rape victims and all of that, they must come out, not necessarily in the public domain. And I would say that, in fact, even those in the media, if such a person should come up, we must take all the steps to protect them, continue to protect their image and their integrity. It's very important.
Let me go to the phones and speak to Kingsley Nyako, who is a psychologist. So you'll probably be the best person to answer this. Kingsley, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you. If you lower your TV set, because there's a little delay so that you can hear me clearly.
Yeah, is it better now?
Yes, it's good. Now, Kingsley, we are looking at the trauma that victims of such events will go through. I mean, I'm sure we're talking about this leaked tape, which apparently came from KNUST, even though they've come out to say, look, it didn't come from there, so let's just forget about it. But the girl involved, I mean, how will she be able to continue life?
Let me say a very good evening to your distinguished viewers.
Mm-hmm.
Sexting has become a big issue now, especially among teens. Research has shown that between 20 and 30% of teens engage in sexting. Normally, because of reasons like ignorance, these teens who engage in this kind of behavior don't know the implications. So they engage in this kind of activities. Some are coerced by their friends. Talking about negative peer pressure, curiosity is also an issue that fuels this kind of situation. But at the end of the day, it has negative implications on the individual. For example, it brings along some form of emotional burden, emotional toil on that particular person. Because when you find that image of yourself is circulating in the media, you can't stand it. Your family will be worried. Your friends will be asking questions. So this puts the individual in this kind of awkward and difficult situation. This means that that particular individual needs some form of attention. It also brings along anger in the victim, because then you are thinking about the person who leaked the video, and frustration and anxiety, because you don't even know who has it. And one important thing is that those who engage in this kind of activity are not aware of the future implications, even on their search for jobs. I'm talking about job opportunities and also career advancement. So these are issues that we need to let teens, adolescents to understand. That you might think that what you are doing is for fun. You are thinking that, oh, my friends are doing it, I must also do it. But the implications are very egregious, in terms of marring your social reputation, even for adults. Normally, when people are engaged in these behaviors, they think that they can be caught. So they don't even worry about the reputation, when the unexpected happens. So, Nana, it is an issue that we need to discuss. And for me, when it happens to people, society should do their best to make sure that they offer some form of support to the victim, because of the psychological trauma this person is likely to find himself, going through, and also because individuals are different in terms of how we handle events that happen to us. There are some who can handle difficult situations easily, others who need societal support, familiar support. So how do we do to let these people understand that we have to put yourself together? There are better days ahead of you, and we demand that society does something to help these people.
Kingsley,
one important thing that we need to also understand.
Kingsley, let me come in here. I mean, does it mean that we can't trust anymore? I mean, what happened to trust and loyalty? And I mean, aren't we humans?
No, trust. I don't know the concept within which you are talking about trust.
Well, let's say,
for example, because of vulnerability, you are in a relationship, you are powerless, and your partner, pressurizes you to release a new picture to him, and you yield to that. It's not about trust. It's about you not figuring what might happen afterwards. Do we understand that relationships are not forever? Do you understand that, some things can go, always for relationships to end? These are, things that should guide us. We're not talking about blind trust. We are talking about being circumspect, okay? And thinking more about your future and societal good. And that's very important. Trust is there. But see, I schooled, in Germany, and they tell us, trust is good. Trust is good, but it's better to control. So it's not blind trust. It's about you being very careful about, yourself, your image, your reputation. Now, even within, the job environment, what some, employers are doing is that they go to social media, they go to Facebook, and try to look at your profile. They try to look at some activities that you are getting in, and based on that, they can decide to, employ you or not. These are things that people don't know. How many teens even know that when an image is uploaded onto, internet, that image stays there for a long time? They don't know. There is no one. Okay, so I think we have a lot to do to let teens, adolescents know that outside the fun that they want to have, there are obvious implications that if we don't take things into consideration, we'll be blaming ourselves, moving forward.
Kingsley, I was having this conversation with the wife this morning.
Your line is a bit faint. I can't hear you well.
I was having this conversation with my wife this morning, and I was asking what the parents, would go through. I mean, if your father and your daughter's picture is all over the place, I mean, how should the parents deal with it to help the child?
Parents, in this country, what I've realized based on some studies I've gone through and some I've done myself, I've come to realize that there is some kind of distance between parents and their kids, especially when it comes to issues about sex. It appears sex is a taboo. I think it's about time we demystify sex so that parents should be able to create that environment whereby their kids can come to them and speak to them about issues of sex. And that's very important. Okay, so because the education will give the children the understanding about the do's and don'ts of sex. The more parents engage their kids, the more the kids get the understanding. In most cases, parents rely on wrongful assumptions that when you engage your children about sexual related issues, then they are going to experiment. But instead, it's otherwise. Kids who have parents who engage with them about sexuality, these kids are less vulnerable to some of these, happenings, these abnormal behaviors that we see around. So there should be this form of engagement. Parents should feel free to speak with their kids about sexual related issues. But Nana, when you were growing up, how many times did you have meaningful conversation with your father or your mother on sexual issues? Hey,
did you ever meet my father? You don't talk to anything about apart from school. You don't talk to anything about that.
But based on what I've seen, I didn't have that kind of experience, and I can put my neck on the line that you didn't either.
No, so, I didn't. That's what I meant. I thought no, I didn't. I had a very even though I had a very liberal dad, sex was not on the table. And I considered my dad to be very, very liberal. Yet sex was not on the table. We didn't have that discussion.
Yeah,
no.
So I think we need to. So we need to have this kind of discussion, and if we did, we are more likely to get less of these negative consequences about some of these abuses in the media when it comes to sexuality.
Hold on for me, Kingsley. I have in the studio Teki Akuta, who's the Executive Director for Data Protection Commission. Yes. Can the father also go to court and say, look, I've been traumatized by what this gentleman did to my daughter, therefore I also want some compensation?
That may be a challenge because, like I said, it's a human right. To the extent that the father's rights have been infringed upon, he can take such action. But usually the action will impugn on the individual. So if, for instance, this face, maybe the father can say that is my daughter and I'm related to her in this manner. So all those who saw the video, who knew me, I was affected by it, he can take other course of action, against the parties. But, I mean, on another note, I agree with Kingsley. There's the need for a lot of education. Earlier on, you were asking me, that whether the current environment calls for a law like this. Indeed, it is the reason why Ghana had to wake up quickly and then start looking at data protection, even though it's been passed in other jurisdictions for decades and they've been practicing data protection. We are at a time where we're actually increasingly promoting the development and use of ICTs in the country. And to do that effectively, we must have laws that ensure prudent and responsible use of these mediums. Because just like any other thing, you know, these tools can be used for the good and for the bad. Yes, we have the social media platforms, but it can be used for good and for bad. And so that is why institutions and laws on data protection are equally important, you know, to give that further assurance to people that, look, the fact that there are all these technologies does not mean that I can go and do whatever it is that I want with these tools and mediums. And education is very key. Kingsley was very right, and that is one thing that we hammer on when we're doing our public education, that a lot of people, it's not just the youth, even adults, you know, do not properly, and it happens all the time, when we engage in using these mediums, when we take images, when we take videos of ourselves and we post it on social media platforms, or we trust somebody to hold that information, a lot of the time we're not able to even envisage into the future the consequences of our actions, because usually it happens in this, on the spur of the moment, in the heat of an excitement, and it has very, very grave implications. So that's one thing. Recently we shared our website and then Facebook page and our YouTube pages. We've shared a short clip, less than a minute, that talks about think, pause before you share. You know, pause, think before you share. And this is just a short, you know, animation on a lady who had taken nude pictures of herself, posted it all over. And then 15 years later, she was vying for, you know, campaigning for a political position. And it came out, you know, while she was on a TV interview. And she said, oh, I did this 15 years ago. However, it was having an implication on her life then. It's important to know that, look, once we put that information out, and these electronic mediums, you know, Kingsley was saying it will take a while before the information never goes away.
Once it's out there,
it is out. You cannot even delete, even if you delete it on your computer on that page, there's a mother somewhere. Exactly, it's somewhere. And you have no control of where this information is going to end up. And so it's very important, once we are doing these things, to be very much aware. I believe that a lot of the time we don't see the full implication, and so we take the decision on the spur of the moment. That's why institutions like ours are there to create more and more awareness on the implication of some of these activities that we engage in.
Dr. Nyarko, is it because we are getting more adventurous? Because the generation who actually understands that information gets stuck in the cloud and stays there forever, and the very ones who are sharing, you know, more of this information, you know, the letter writing age are rather not doing it. So is it just we're getting more adventurous?
Yeah, you know, one factor that drives teens to engage in testing is curiosity. You know, they want to explore, they want to know more about things that they don't have idea about. But in their exploration, they are also not mindful of the implication. So that is where ignorance also comes into the calculus. It's good to explore, it's good to be curious, but it is not, you don't have to adventure when you don't have, you know, adequate knowledge about what you are doing. And I think that when teens are conscious of the fact that some of these images are going to be on the internet for a long time, then they will be guided by their curiosity. And that is very, very important. They have to adventure, but it's better to adventure into activities that will be more productive to your life than adventure in activities that the future repercussions are more likely to be negative. And that is, for me, very important. And if this case know the implication of what they are doing, I'm persuaded that they'll be less vulnerable to, display their nude images on social media and other new media platforms.
What's the first thing you tell a victim? I mean, I told you so, or I mean, what's the first thing you tell somebody who's, like this lady? I mean, if I were to meet her, I mean, what's the first thing I have to tell her? It's okay. It's going to be. It will die out. I mean, what do you tell them?
This particular victim, one might be going through emotional difficulties based on how society has handled her. So the harm has been caused. Are you going to condemn this person? No. Are you going to blame this person? No. You need to let this person understand that there's a need for her or him to chart a better course moving forward. And that is psychological. You don't distance yourself from the person. Get words that will put the person together. Stepping in the shoes of that individual. I'm talking about empathy here.
I mean, so what do you tell them? Look, it's already happening. Just get on with your life.
The most important thing is that this incident has happened, but the person needs support. The person needs encouragement from you as an individual, whether a family member or whether it's a counselor or a psychologist like myself. Okay? You need to appreciate the person's peculiar situation and offer that form of help. Let the person forget about that. It has happened. Because the more the person dwells on the past, the more it's going to eat that person up. The more the anger, the more the frustration are going to increase. And you wouldn't want that. You wouldn't want that thing, because it also has the potential of leading to suicidal ideation, especially when people don't get closer to that individual. This is what particularly we have to, put on the way to help this particular, individual in this emotional, environment.
So, I mean, can I walk to the media commission and say, look, I need help because, my personal information is being leaked out there. Where do I go? I mean, how do you support people if you do?
You mean the data protection?
The data protection.
Media.
I beg your pardon.
Yes. We are required by the law to take complaints from the public when it relates to an infringement on their data protection rights. So any victim at all can walk to us and then make a complaint. The law allows us to investigate, to find out further what has happened. And if we find out or may take a certain decision which recognizes that an infringement has happened, we have the power to issue enforcement notices. So in this case, if we find out that some individuals or organizations have done publication of these videos illegally, and we're able to establish that this information has been, we can issue a notice for them to, get rid of that, in compliance with the laws as well. What we can do is like issue fines or compensation on behalf of that individual. So if they need compensation, like you mentioned, somebody may want to relocate, find a different place, find a different school, which may have cost implications. If those are the kind of remedies they want, they must go to court for it. But in terms of ours, we'll issue an enforcement notice. If you do not comply with the enforcement notice, it then becomes a criminal action to which we can actually take you through the criminal prosecution process.
What if, let's say, sent a private part with no face on it? Mm-hmm. Are you going to prove that, look, that's my private part, or?
The important thing for us, our mandate rests on personal data, and the law actually defines that personal information as information about an individual or from which an individual can be identified. So usually if there is no face and it becomes, there's nothing else that can link the information to a particular individual, you will not term that as personal information, for which reason the law would not necessarily apply. However, if maybe there's a particular, dress that I have, and I know people who know I have this dress, and the dress shows up, okay, or maybe there's a birthmark that my father, my mother, people who were close to me know that I bear this particular birthmark, and it shows up in the picture, you can actually establish and use that as a basis. But invariably, the person who knows themselves will see the picture, and it will still cause that anxiety. So once you establish that this is my video and all of that, you can actually get that information, pulled down. In fact, they can do it through their lawyers or come to us. Usually when you come to us, we want to establish that you've actually contacted those who have the information, who we call the data controllers or processors, and they have refused to do nothing about it. Then we'll take it from there.
I took the phone to the repairer. It's the repairer who sent it out. I took the phone to the repairer sent it out, or my friends. It's never the guy who recorded that sent it out. Somebody, stole it. Am I still liable if I?
Yes. You remember I mentioned that there are certain principles that apply. You have to protect the information. So,
well, I was until the repairer took it.
Well, it means that you didn't take it to a repairer who was responsible. What was the agreement that you had with the repairer, for instance? You have a responsibility to protect it. So you cannot just take it to any repairer. And for instance, there are certain basic things you can do, unless you can establish that I never throw out my laptops. I never give my laptops to anyone, or my phone for it to. I remember I had a cracked screen. I asked, a gentleman in my office to bring the person to my office to come and then change.
Let me take a quick break here, and then when I come back, say, what if the incident happened like many, many, many years ago and you are just finding out? Stay tuned, I'm coming. Remind all of you Guarantee Trust Bank customers that do you know that you can buy airtime from the convenience of your own home or office using the GT top-up service by dialing the short code *737#. Guarantee Trust Bank is rewarding customers who are yet to activate the GT top-up service from Monday 15th February to 14th May 2016. The first 20 customers who activate the service daily and buy a minimum of 20 Ghana Cedi airtime on any network will be rewarded 5 Ghana Cedis worth of airtime. To activate the GT top-up service, dial *737# on your mobile phone and enter your GT bank account. You are then required to key in a 4-digit secret PIN and confirm it to complete the activation process. GT Top-Up is the most efficient, reliable means to buy airtime for yourself, family, friends, anywhere and anytime. The short code is *737#. Remember, terms and conditions apply. Guarantee Trust Bank. Wouldn't you rather bank with us? This one says, sometimes our own carelessness leads us into such troubles. We trust too much. That's the question. Is there a statute of limitation?
Not under the laws that we have, not under the Data Protection
So
Act.
If it happened 20, 30 years ago and I just realized that, There's my
no,
picture.
I mean, once it's your information and it relates, it still affects you today, even if it comes out 10 years later, I believe that you can have a course of action, you know. Yes.
Oh, practicality. Have I got Kingsley on the line still? Oh, okay. No, I don't have Kingsley on the line still. So I mean, going forward, what are we left with? More education or more enforcement?
I believe it's a combination of both. We have to educate so that we're more responsible in how we handle other people's data, but more so how we also handle our information and deal with people who handle our information. And then we need the enforcement, because if we do not crack the whip, you know, people will continue to treat such things.
Are there any landmark cases so far?
Not in Ghana, in Ghana, but I mean all over the world there are several cases to that effect. So it's very important that we take some of these issues up and then test it through the court system. Ultimately, I think it gives a better force to the law than any other thing, you know.
I mean, is it that we don't maybe value our personal data? Why is it that? Because there's been quite a number. I mean, and leading up to this election year, I mean, forget about nudity, but it would be this secret conversations and secret letters and notes. I mean, the WhatsApp will be flooded with it. I mean, are all those people liable?
Yes, you can't hide, and the point is, even like I said, even if the information comes to you by mistake, you know, the law kicks in. You have a responsibility to protect that information. You have a responsibility to ensure fair use of the information. You have the responsibility to make sure that you are lawfully holding or using such information. What we've done, especially in this, you know, during these times, because we recognize is that we've even issued for the political parties, because we know there will be a lot of marketing, direct marketing, which is also another issue that data protection takes very seriously. We've issued guidelines on political campaigning, you know, because we believe that if we're able to, as political parties that are, you know, holding themselves out, we must be accountable to the laws. We must uphold the rule of law in this country. And so we've issued guidelines to actually help them comply with these laws. And we're hoping that that will minimize some of the effect of these bad behaviors. And we've even engaged with the EC at a certain level. And we're hoping to take further steps to, you know, ensure that the political parties, at least on that front, are well educated to actually understand the implications. Because the thing is with the political parties that it's not so much, somebody may not like your party and may intentionally even send your message to someone they know does not like or is not in favor of your party. And with a law like this, that person can actually take the party on, you know, in court and sue the party. And you don't really want to go through, you know, this whilst you are also campaigning, you know, for political position.
Why are ladies always at the, you know, receiving end of these tapes? Not so much the men.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that, but probably it's because of our nature, you know, and our maybe the psychologists will better handle, but maybe it's because of our nature, you know, and our sexuality, and men may be more interested in viewing than maybe other women viewing the sex tape of another man and the rest. So probably that is why women end up being victim, because a lot of people will probably patronize such information. A lot of men will actually patronize information about us more than, you know, a woman will go about patronizing information, because Nana Sako, I don't think it would mean anything to us.
Gross, isn't it? It'll be gross. So
yeah.
with So, under the Data Commission, so how wide is your jurisdiction? I mean, is it just text messages, letters, emails?
Any information about an individual or from which an individual can be identified. So,
no matter how it is contained?
Yes, even images, so pictures, images, text, hard copy, electronic, I mean...
verbal?
Verbal, you know, if it is done in such a way that you have proof of it. So maybe it's recorded and the rest. So essentially anything that you can do with personal information, you know.
Can I change my mind? I give you my information to use, come back next week and say, look, I've changed my mind.
Yes. And the law allows you to do that. And the law says that immediately I come back to you and I say, Nana, I gave you my video for this purpose. I don't want you to use the video anymore.
What if you signed it? So
it doesn't matter. I can change my mind. It's my rights. So I can change my mind about it. The only thing is that when you change your mind, sometimes it may be difficult to withdraw, you know, that information fully, or you may have already used that information. So what you need to do is to inform the person why you cannot
continue.
Why you cannot continue, not continuation per se, but why you cannot respect what they are asking you to do, or why it cannot be done. So let's say, for instance, you've given me information on finances, okay, on banking, my banking records, and then I come back and I say, bank, delete all my information. By the banking laws, they may have to keep those records for a certain period. And so reasonably, yes, they can come to you, but the bank must get back to the person and say that I'm keeping this information. I cannot agree to your request because of this tax purposes or these other legal and regulatory requirements.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's been an education, but I think they said, you know, trust but be more practical. You know, yeah, this trust is good, but be more practical.
Pause, think before you share.
Pause, think before you share. Tomorrow we'll be back to do this all over again. I want to say thank you very much. Thank you for coming to educate us. And then let me remind all you guys who normally would have tuned in on Thursdays to listen to That My Opinion. That's now Mondays at 8 p.m. Mondays at 8 p.m. So no more Thursday 2 p.m. but Mondays at 8 p.m. and there's a lot of data on there. So you have to tune in and share Monday at 8 p.m. Thank you for watching. Thank you so much.
PM Express was brought to you by
Guarantee Trust Bank. Wouldn't you rather bank with us?